Okay, so now we are recording, and so Professor Nahabedian and I, Professor Duran, are here to. We're doing a little experiment. We were thinking about as we talk about the class and we talk about the topics, and then what is it that we want to convey. We realized that much of academic life, much of community organizing, and other ways of doing community work takes place as conversations, essentially, between people who are in one sense experts in the field. And so we were thinking, like, how cool it would be if we were to simply have conversations. We recorded them, the kind of conversations that we have anyway around the content, but specifically focusing on things that students might especially need, or things that trip up our students over time. So within this class in particular, which we've both taught for a number of years, and we're both really excited about, and we really welcome all of our students this semester to these kinds of experimental conversations. They're not going to be the glossy productions. There's not going to be any kind of like inserts of text or like song or anything.
Or videos, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be nothing except for our conversation. So so just but we're going to try to be as useful as possible, and also not to take too long also, so that we're not going on and on. So this conversation is about what is it that students need to know in order to, or like what advice would we give in order to for students to succeed in this class. Like, what are the kinds of patterns that we've seen with that successful students had seem to fall into when we see the class, and then what are things that might be kind of hidden areas that students may not take as seriously, but it then end up tripping them up. So we could start with that, with specifically the advice that we would give, or if you want, then we can also kind of think about explaining kind of the larger purpose of this class, and how over time what we've been trying to do is to move it more and more towards being of value to the community, of direct value, aside from the learning that you're getting, but then also towards having some kind of impacts over time, and having you all learn about community organizing while engaging in community work. Um, so the point is, we can either go straight to the tips, or we can first start with the grand idea. And so I leave it to you to now talk.
Well, and I'll watch the time so that and it'll be an interchange, but I'll watch the time so that I don't go over 5 minutes before we actually pause, if we haven't paused then, so that we can kind of gauge where we're at and move forward. So I would say that the first thing is this is a class that really can be inspirational. Students who are in this class mostly are social work students. And social work students have passions, they have inspiration. They can say, I care about, and fill that blank. I care about, right? Fill in the blank. So, what do you care about? And even those students who are not social work students, which there are a few in each class, what do you care about? So, to really fill in that blank, I care about, sort of pause there and really get in touch with, what do you care about in this world? What are you passionate about? What are some problems that you see in this world that you want to make better, right? And really, that's the reason why we're in social work. There are some things that we see and we want to make them better. So whether or not that's with a population of the elderly or a population of children, or whether or not that's around socioeconomic issues or that's around health, it really comes down to, we give a hoot and we want to make things better. So that's the really fun part of the class, because you get to really consider, what do you care about, and then see how you can understand that issue, or I'll say, use the word problem. I'll say using community organizing the words, I'll stay with the word problem, understand that problem, and then try to cut an issue from that, and then create an intervention. So that's sort of the larger piece. And then in a more basic piece, particularly because we are in distant learning, right? Distance learning, what we write as instructors on the syllabus or on the Canvas lecture or under announcements become super important, super important. We are not meeting very easily with ease and comfort in class where the 35 of you are sitting, and you can raise a hand and ask a question. You can easily stay after class. We're meeting, all of our instructional minutes are done face to face at that time. Now our face to face Zoom time is cut into half for reasonable reasons, right? And what that means is that we are communicating to you through other methods. And some of those methods are written. Most of it is written. And so there's a lot to read. There's a lot more to read. And the syllabus is the first place to start reading. The syllabus is the first place to start. If you were the kind of student who got by with not really reading the syllabus and then kind of coming to it when things are due, that worked for you, right? It's not going to work for you as much now, because what is in the syllabus, what you need to know now will affect you later. So instead of waiting, particularly for this class, to when the assignment is due and then reading about it, you really need to have read that syllabus front cover to back cover the first week. That'll help you out a great, great deal. And then reading the lectures that are written on Canvas, and then keeping up with the reading. There's so much to be said. I can't say enough about reading the materials. That's true for each class, particularly for this class, particularly at this time during COVID and distance learning. The other thing I would say, well, I'll pause here, see if I have a couple of more things to add, Professor Duran. Shall I add them now in terms of how to move forward with the group work?
Well, the thing that I would really love is I have a couple of things that I wanted to add to your excellent introduction to the class before we move forward, if that's okay. Or if you want, then I can, because I'm taking notes. Oh yeah, that's another thing. It's really great for to engage multiple ways of learning by taking notes when somebody is lecturing. So
I still do that. I take notes at meetings that I attend, literally I'm writing, because it helps me remember, even if I don't refer to them as I'm writing things down, it helps me remember. So because you're not sitting in a classroom doesn't mean that you can't, or try to create a space for yourself, even if it's just a seat and a table or in your car, where you're really paying attention to what's being said and writing notes down as you're hearing them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And sometimes even in just like places in real life, like if you're having like a really in-depth conversation with somebody and you really want to give them the space to talk, well, clinical settings also, it's so notes really are fantastic. And the thing that I would add to the notes being fantastic is that after about 24 hours, 48 hours, you look back at those notes and chances are great that it might look like gibberish, unless you take the time after the event itself to stop and then write down, okay, what are the 3 key points that are being made? And then what is the evidence that's used in order to support this, some kind of a reaction? Because if it's not solidified, then it's very easy for it to slip through your fingers, unless you're really kind of like you're really good at taking notes. But even then, it's sometimes things don't make sense. So I think that
I'll reaffirm that takeaway. So from class, right, or any lecture, sort of at the end, like, what are the 3 takeaways? And I do this now. When I attend a committee meeting, I'm on the Board of Education in Glendale Unified School District, as you know. And so last night I was attending what's called an LCAP meeting. It's fun. It's a funny acronym, but Local Control and Accountability Meeting. And I was taking some notes, but what I have to tell myself still is I have to tell myself, Nighty, what are the three important points here? Because I'm going to report on this later. And so no matter what notes I take, I try to think about what are the three important pieces. If someone were to ask me what came out of that meeting, what are the 3 points that I can say? So when you're reading something or when you're listening to a lecture, what are the three main pieces that you can take with you is a good practice to have.
Yeah, and one way of thinking about it too is that it's kind of like, how much time do you want to devote to this task? Because if you've already attended, an hour's worth of meeting or lecture or whatever it is, do you want to actually keep the work, or do you want to, or do you want to leave that up to chance? And someone, a very successful student, was pointing out about how is it, why is it that he makes super sure that he gets every single thing in on time, is that he says that I'm going to have to do the work anyway. I might as well get full credit. And I thought that that was kind of like such a neat shift, is that like you are going to have to do it in the end. And to get full credit for it is a great, just basically pay yourself first,
Right.
in terms of academics, in terms of your school performance, doing little tweaks to your behaviors, such that you don't, kind of like, there was also another phrase which was something like, picture it or it doesn't happen. It was some kind of marketing club, and they always had pictures of themselves doing stuff. It's kind of like, or Facebook, people say it didn't happen if it didn't happen on Facebook. In a sense, it's really true. Like the things that you have in your, in some kind of in the form of a photo or something like that, that you can actually access, are the things that you will remember. And then everything else is just, maybe it will resonate.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you will remember it, but they say that from any given class, you only remember at best 3 things, at best. So the whole class, when you have like such a density of information. So one thing that we're noticing here, I think, is that one of the things that we wanted to really share with you, and especially in this introductory meeting, is things that we found especially helpful, or kind of like words of wisdom that we wish that we had received, perhaps, or at least that's the frame that I'm doing. Because I don't know, for me, I had my God, it took me so long to get through schools because of the fact that I just was trying to be fancy and then keep going around the system, instead of doing the simple thing of doing the tasks that are needed in order to get things in on time, in order to kind of get the benefit of the work. And so I wished that there were to be somebody who says, like, it's not that you're crazy, or it's not that you don't know how to do stuff, or like that you're not well cut out for school work. It's just like you don't have the right work habits. And here they are, I always wish that I had read that book. So okay, one thing that I wanted to add is that so I love how you were pointing out that this is a class that students can get excited about, and it's true. As an example, there's a group that I had just this last semester, and they did a fantastic project. They were doing a project with the homeless population on Skid Row, and this one of the students wanted to know, like, how can I keep going, in a sense, with this. And what I pointed out to her is that, because my other class, the financial empowerment class, not to pitch it, but I am, because it's an intervention, it's a community intervention. So it's going to be one of the things we're going to study, is how is it that at least we are doing on in our school in a unique way, because there's very few schools that teach anything financial within social work. There's like I did the last kind of little census that we had, was something like, I think that it was 15 universities in the country that had MSW programs that taught any kind of finances. So we're extremely unique. And then how is it that we're creating this financial capability building, professor, Nahabedian is actually the person. She's the person that spearheaded the child savings accounts for California. That essentially means that every child starting that was born like half a year ago onwards in California now has a safety a savings account for college, which already has $25, and then everybody can add to their savings account, which is a gigantic it's a gigantic success. There's only a few states, maybe what, two or three states that have child savings accounts.
They've caught up a few other states as well.
Okay, as if when you live.
And ours, as we're like right now working on the seed dollar, families are able to have up to $100. So there's a $25 seed plus a couple of things that families can do and get up to 100 as their initial. So that's really exciting. Starting kids who are born this summer.
That's so wonderful. So yeah, this is so great. I feel as if I always, whenever I talk to Professor Nahabedian about her work, about our work actually, because we're in the same field, except that she's doing things in a different way, in this fabulous way. I always feel like I wanted to throw a parade, with like confetti, like yes, yes. So yeah, so we have we're also going to be bringing in kind of like how is it that we see community work from our end. So this is a class that people can get passionate about. What I was going to finish with is that in my in my financial empowerment class, which I hold in the spring, there's 10 hours of service learning. So anything that you get passionate about here within this class, what you can do is, if you take the elective financial empowerment, then you can create a project for yourself and you can also convince other people in the class, because they also have to do 10 hours of service learning, and it's open-ended as long as it builds financial empowerment in the community. So you can come up with an idea here and then execute it in an even bigger way there, and then all of that is kind of like great things for your academic accomplishments, things you can list in your resume and all of that stuff.
That's an important point to remember, is that this class can be a foundation for that financial justice, financial empowerment, capacity and asset building work that Professor Duran, that you teach. And so it's a good place to begin and to advance into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Kind of like almost like getting an informal little, internship or something like that. So that's one piece. And what we're doing is right now we're exposing kind of like a little bit of the mechanics. One thing that I find super exciting about community organizing as a topic, which for me is just kind of that blew my mind essentially, is that all these things that you see out in the world, for example, Black Lives Matters, for example, did you notice that with the Women's March, all of a sudden everybody was wearing the same hats, like as if everybody got the memo, and everybody was instantly protesting at the same time everywhere. And that was the thing that was like really crazy. Well, all of that is actually using community organizing principles. What I find super exciting about community organizing, the class, and then also the book that you guys are going to read, is that the thing that's crazy is that all these things that look like these spontaneous kind of like revolutions and everything like that, there's a method to it. There is a freaking technique. And that's the thing that's just mind-blowing, is it looks as if it's spontaneous. It looks as if it's kind of like from the ground, but you're going to be learning how to achieve that. And the way that you achieve that is that you actually bring in members of the community, people who are affected by the problem, and then you put them into the driver's seat of the change that they want to make to address a social problem that they're affected by themselves. And so what community organizing is about is how to help to bring people who think that they have no place in the community, that it doesn't matter, nothing will ever change. And then how is it that you help them to understand they are one piece of a larger social problem? This is not an individual problem, this is a social problem. And that they have a voice in that, and that there are people who need to be hearing their voice, and how do we get them to do that? So all of that is community organizing. And that's the thing that makes it so powerful, because it is coming from the people that are affected by it. But we know how difficult it is to figure anything out, like in general. Like we know that we ought to, like, whatever, there's all sorts of ought to things, like if everybody were to be doing the things that they ought to be doing, like, yeah, great, but it's difficult to take the time to learn about it, and a lot of times the information is actually very opaque. It's very kind of like difficult to see. How is it that you know that it's important to get involved in the community heart, always, like, but then, like, how do you actually do that? And that's the thing that I think is exciting about this topic, and then specifically within this class. For example, one of the things that you're going to be doing is going to a community meeting, and that's kind of where the action takes place, is at the level of community meetings. And then the paper that you're going to be doing is going to be reflecting on a social problem of a community that you care about. You're going to be choosing groups, and then you guys are going to be working on the problem for a community you care about, and you propose an intervention, but not just any intervention, kind of like, oh, if you had $1 million, well, how would you solve it, or what do the experts think we should do? No, this is going to be kind of crazy, because the resources that you have is actually very realistic, in the sense that it's service learning hours for future students to take up, and then to continue with your project. So it's actual real resources. It is student time, but also at the same time, so it's at the level that you can actually, but it's real. That's the difference. Yeah, it's not as much as $1 million, but $1 million doesn't exist for us right now. The thing that does exist is, how is it that is hours that students are going to have to do, especially after COVID. We're going to be increasing the number of service learning hours, and so
Yeah,
yeah.
and that reminds me that really it's about organized people versus organized money. So it's okay that we, the social workers, the community organizers, don't seem to have as much money as the opposition, because really it's about organized people, organized power versus organized money, and we can win through organized people and organized power. So I'm looking at the time, and
Yes,
I
thank
think
you.
we've
Let's
hit the okay.
we've hit that. We've gone over Mark already twice.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
let's finish with, what are the things, like, maybe 2, 3 things that we think are, like, what would make students especially successful.
Well, I think one thing would be students need to connect with other students, and need to connect with other students before tasks are due, or before really we start talking about tasks. What I mean is that it's important to build rapport and relationship, with your classmates, one, two, or three of them, by having a one-on-one interview, very parallel to what you would be doing with the person you interview, very parallel with what you do in real life in community organizing, which is in fact one of the chapters. It says one-on-one interviews. So to really have those one-on-one interviews with your classmates, and to get to know them. What are they passionate about? What do they care about? Who are they? Why do they care about the thing that they care about? And so start there, before kind of figuring out, who needs to do what, all of those things. So that's one thing that I would say is important, and to start thinking about together, where are the shared passions, what are the shared interests, and perhaps finding something to attend together. And I'll say this: so when you have a problem in your mind or a passion in your mind, then you also can think about what's the population that is affected by that, and then where's the arena. So think of the acronym PPA. Right now we use PPA during COVID time for isn't that an acronym, personal protective
PPD, no?
PPDs? Yeah, okay, so this is a PPA. So this
Or
is
maybe
person. So this is your first P is the problem, the second P is the population, and the A is the arena. Okay, so you want to think about the problem, and then the problem that you care about, the population that's being affected, and then the arena. And what I mean by the arena is, okay, where is this happening? As in, where is this being fixed? Is it at a city council meeting? Is there a community organizing organization that's there, that's trying to figure out that problem? So the arena where these problems are being dealt with. So your population, your problem, and then the arena, your PPA. So there's a lot more to say, but I'm going to pause there just in the interest of, of, of time and sort of taking things slowly. But those are the things that I would say to keep in mind.
And for me, the thing that I would say to keep in mind is that one thing that's really weird about this class is that there's a huge number of points that are given for something that usually is not graded at all, which is how you are as a group member taking part in completing a group project. And so the bottom line from that is, this is intentional because so much of it, like so much community work does or doesn't get done on the basis of whether people take leadership and whether they complete the project in as excellent of a way with while taking care of making sure that everybody is heard and so on. That's the biggest thing, is that I would say that exactly building those relationships, because of the fact that, think of it in terms of, this is the thing that will give you your grade. If you're going to blow off the group project, then you could very easily get an F in that part of the grade,
Group
which is 20% of the
participation
grade.
points.
Hmm. Yeah, so that means that, or if you get an F on that, then you're already, even without, if you get 100% in everything else, you get 80% in the class. That's if you get 100% everywhere else. This is, I've had, I'm a very sweet and kind person, although fair, and fair. And the thing that I don't feel sad about is students who fail because of the fact that they failed their group. If you're more of a pain to be working with, and it's more difficult to be doing the work with you because other people have to carry you along, no sympathy, because this is something that if you're not going to be learning right now, then you're going to be carrying with you for a while into your professional social work career, and we have to do something to stop it. I mean, whatever, to intervene, to help you to think about how to be a good group member. And then also, on the other hand, for people who are already really advanced in terms of the leadership that they show within their groups, they're taking care of others, they're reminding people, they're keeping people on task, they're making sure that people are doing excellent work, they're showing up prepared, they know their stuff. Those people are getting the extra recognition that they almost never do, because in a group project, it's too often it's kind of the dedicated person does the group project for everybody else. Everybody thinks, oh, that was really great, sorry, yeah, sorry, I wasn't able to, blah blah blah, and then that's it. In this case, what happens is that the excellent performers are going to get a big additional boost to their grade, because it's worth basically the same amount as the paper. And the people who are carried along are going to not get that boost, and in fact they're going to have very, very strong consequences for their grades. So the students that I see repeating the class are the students that don't do well in the group project. They kind of show up at first and then they float away, or they're very difficult to work with, and they fail that part of the class, and then they fail the class in effect, because a lot of times they're struggling with balancing other things. So it's not like everything else is going right. So that's my biggest caution, is that it's very easy to get an A in this class if you show up for each other, and if you show up for the topic. The reading is easy and it's
Mhm.
really interesting.
Yep.
I mean, this book is brilliant. It's brilliant in its simplicity. It's got bullets. It helps to take there's no BS in the reading.
Mhm.
Essentially, everything is just pared down. It's like river rocks. If you don't do the readings, it's actually really obvious, because of the way that you talk about things. Like, it's funny to me when I see essays written where people are like, oh, it's like doing the smoke. There's no way around it. Like, you have to know the concepts of the reading, and also it's easy and it's fun. And so you show up, you do the work, you're going to do very well, you're going to be getting the A's. You also the other piece of it, sorry, that this is the third item where showing up matters, is that the class is arranged so like that it proceeds at a sequential order. There's a certain time for quizzes, there's a certain time for discussions and the replies. And if you just build that into your schedule now, if you block that in as to when is it that you're going to be doing those things, then you can't help but to have this be the easy class that you're going to be getting an A in. On the other hand, this could be the nightmare class if you're trying to catch up right before a big project.
They're going to be keeping up, Professor Duran. So keep on the reading. It's a fun book. It's a really easy book. It's just very inspirational with lots of stories. So welcome again to community organizing. We're so happy to have you, and
Yeah.
we'll see you in class.
Yes, exactly. And also, however it is that we post this video, I think what we should do is open up the comments section so that we can see whether this is a modality that, like, whether this is something that works for people or not, or
How
also to be
useful is
checking in.
it?
So in the event that we set that up, then look below, guys. No, I'm joking. No, my son is into YouTube. Okay, thank you and bye-bye.
All right. Very good.